much, Dale, for that introduction. And it really is here, it's very amazing to be among all of you because these stories are stories that matter. The work that you're doing in your communities are vital. And so it's a pleasure for me to be a part of this celebration tonight. And it's particularly important for all of us to be here to honor the work of 3 individuals and their organizations. And we know that individuals and organizations are really tips of icebergs. So we're really honoring those communities at large. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the work that's being done and the relevance of that to what Dale was sharing, which are stories and personal stories. So I want to begin actually by sharing a quote that means a lot to me. And the quote is this: "Storytelling is the human soul made visible." I'll just repeat that once more. Storytelling is the human soul made visible. And the person who said that is Donald Davis. Donald is a master storyteller who was born and raised in the mountains of Appalachia. And he now travels the country performing in community festivals and teaching this art of storytelling. And Donald himself is a retired Methodist preacher. So he is somebody who knows something about stories and human souls. Over the past few years, I've been fortunate to attend twice now Donald's week-long storytelling retreats. And the storytelling retreats are actually done in conjunction with community leaders. So the 2 times that I've gone, I've done that with a dozen community leaders who are from nonprofit organizations from across the country. And all of the leaders who were in these retreats were actually supported through scholarships by a foundation called the William Casper Graustein Memorial Fund. And what the fund does is it works in 2 particular areas. They're based in Connecticut, but they really are committed to promoting educational reform and community development. And their belief is that storytelling is a tool for organizing. And in fact, they believe that stories themselves are the building blocks for social change and personal empowerment. So occasionally, what the Memorial Fund does when it hosts these storytelling retreats is that they invite 1 or 2 colleagues from foundations to join this, to really spend time with Donald, a master storyteller, but really more importantly, to spend time with these amazing leaders, much like the ones that we'll be honoring tonight, so that we can share and be a part of their stories. And so there's a number of things I've learned and taken away from that, and I would like to share that with you this evening with 3 lessons that come from the work of Donald and storytelling. So once upon a time, no, I'm not going to start there. So here's lesson number 1. All great stories are built on 2 fundamental themes. The first being people, and a second being place. And these 2 themes are really connected because as soon as you begin to describe in a story a particular place, whether it's your community, it's the place that you work, your place of worship, this planet, a place, you begin to really talk about the people who live there and bring that place to life. And that's the connection between place. And by the same token, whenever you try to introduce someone who's really important to you in a story to people that matter, you don't get very far in that story before you begin to describe the place that that person comes from and their impact on that place. So in this way, there's a real connection that flows naturally between people and places. And when you tell a story, especially, I'm thinking back because my daughter is here, and I'm thinking of the times when I would literally say once upon a time many years ago. You don't get very far in telling a story when she would be wondering, well, Daddy, where are we? Where is this place, this story that you're talking about? Or, Daddy, who's there? There's always this curiosity about who are these people that are in this special place. So to give you an example, I want to share with you just a brief part of my personal story. And I'm going to begin with this notion of place. I was born in the San Joaquin Valley of Central California, and it's a place that's considered the food basket of the world because it's so rich in fertile soil and farmlands. And I was born as a baby boomer to a Chinese-American family. My father was from rural Southern California, and my mother came from San Francisco, Chinatown. And together they met and settled in a very small rural community, a farm town called Los Baños, the Baths. And it was right in the middle of California. And we were there because my father was sent there by his father to work on a family farm that my grandfather purchased the land of prior to the Great Depression. So my father was actually forced to leave high school and regrettably never finished his high school education. See, my father was the firstborn son of 19 children. Yes, 19 children. I often said that in his family alone, he had enough brothers and sisters for 2 baseball teams and an umpire. But my father was raised, along with his brothers and sisters, on a small asparagus farm outside of Los Angeles. And it was a dusty farm there during just after the turn of the century. And my father often joked that they really didn't have a need for farm workers because my grandparents would simply raise more babies to work on the farm. So when I was born in 1952, my grandfather gave me a Chinese name. And that name is this, Wu Guoming. And the notion of place is actually very central to my Chinese name. And I'll tell you how that's so. In Cantonese, which is the dialect that my parents spoke, Wu is my last name. And in our tradition, the last name is stated first. So Wu. The second name I have is Guo. And Guo means of the country. And that name was given to me by my grandfather because I was born in the countryside of rural California. And the last word in my name, Ming, translates to great leader. So Wu Guoming is my name, and I am great leader from the country. And I have to really smile because obviously my grandfather had high expectations for me, and I have to say I've been trying to live up to them ever since. But that's part of my story, and I just wanted to share that with you to show you the integrated connection between place and people. And those are 2 places and people that matter greatly to me. And I'm sure that when we hear from Tita and Viking and Linda, they're going to share some amazing stories about laughter in the Ethiopian community, about youth and peacemaking in the Central District, and about working to preserve and restore the place that we call Mother Earth. So I'm looking forward to that this evening. The second lesson from storytelling is this. Often the listener hears the story before the teller realizes she has a story to tell. Often the listener hears the story before the teller realizes she has a story to tell. What Donald means by this lesson is that profound stories unfold naturally and without forced effort. And I just realized that I didn't have my glasses on. And all of a sudden everything is clear. So often we as storytellers are too close to our own life events to really make full sense of them and to recognize the power and the resonance of those events in our lives. So a story is really best told in its rough, unpolished form so it can really live fully in the world and benefit from its own image being reflected back to you by other listeners. And what Donald would say, Donald Davis, is that the art of storytelling is as much about listening as it is about telling. That it's as much about listening as it is about telling. So think about that for a moment. One of the most intimate gifts that we can offer one another, that we can offer our families, that we can give to our communities, is the gift of listening. It doesn't happen nearly enough, and when it does, you can feel the effects of that affirmation and empowerment We know that. We know that when we see it and when we feel it, and that's what the work of the center is about. It's in this spirit that the Center for Ethical Leadership has developed their body of work, which they call Gracious Space, which is tools for helping people to work better together. And Gracious Space is really creating the opening, the space for a powerful transformation, which we'll hear more about tonight. And I believe there's actually a lot in common between this notion of gracious space and the art of storytelling. Because where there is gracious space present, people feel free to tell their stories and to tell them in their deepest, most unpolished form without fear of being judged. And when that happens, and when the reflection returns and those stories evolve, there flows respect, dignity, creativity, and innovation, which we're here to celebrate tonight. And Donald tells this story where he says that stories themselves enter into the world like newborn babies. They're wrinkled and they're all messy. And that our work really is to take them home and to wash them up and to give them lots of love, and then to bring them out and admire them with the rest of our community. So think of your stories in that way, and they'll be much easier to share. And now for the last lesson is this. As you listen to a teller's story, and if you're invited to offer feedback, keep in mind this dynamic. Everything that gets labeled gets bigger. Everything that gets labeled gets bigger. So if you label the mistake, that is what will grow. Now imagine pointing out what works. If you do that, then that is what will grow. And this is such a vital lesson in all of our lives, at home, at work, in our communities. And Donald's advice, like Gracious Space, is transformative. Pointing out what works, that is what will grow. And so tonight, we're gathered to do exactly this. We are here to point out what works about the Center for Ethical Leadership. We are here to point out what works with Tita Begashaw in her communities around the Puget Sound. We're here to understand and really point out what works for Wyken Garrett and the young people that he works with. And we're here to celebrate what works with Linda Park and her efforts to restore and protect our planet. And I know that as we do this, that is what will grow. So that which grows will be laughter, it will be sustainability, and it will be peace. So thank you very much. And I would just close by saying storytelling, again, is a human soul made visible. And I wrote this 30 years ago when I worked in the San Francisco Conservation Corps, which was the nation's first urban conservation corps. We had 100 young people from around the city, young men and young women who came together every morning and formed work crews, and we took them throughout the city of San Francisco to build parks, to restore wetlands, to paint senior housing. It was an urban conservation corps, and it was as diverse as anything is in San Francisco. And everybody in the corps got along just fine with each other. But sometimes when we walked into the communities where our corps members were from, other corps members would feel uncomfortable. So the Chinese corps members felt uncomfortable going into the traditional communities and neighborhoods of the Latino corps members. Or the African American corps members felt uncomfortable going into Chinatown. And so back in 1984, in order to deal with this, I wrote a poem. And I tried to say in this poem that there is a lot that we share if we're only willing to actually dig deep to see that. So would you like to hear that poem? Yes. Thank goodness you said yes. It goes something like this. I'm Funk Master Fong from Chinatown. Listen to me, y'all. I didn't realize this was such a powerful poem. Let me start over. I'm Funk Master Fong from Chinatown. Listen to me, y'all, while I rap it down. I'm the king of the streets, can't you see? Deng Xiaoping's got nothing on me. Chinatown's my home, sweatshops and all. I've been walking these streets since I learned to crawl. Life ain't like the flower drum song. That's why they call me Funk Master Fong. When you're 5'2" on Grant Avenue, life is tough when you go to school. Kids all tease me and call me names. Ching Chong Chinaman drives me insane. So I draw from the past, the things that last, Kung Fu, lion dance, and meditation. With a little hip hop and imagination, hey, I just invented Chinese breaking. Now, I get respect wherever I go. People want to see my breakdancing show. I play the hottest tunes on my boombox. I bring new meaning to the year of the ox. The world's my turf, and I'm no fool. I am Funk Master Fong, and I'm too cool.